here in this body, we're going to praise the Lord. You know, so that's how I encourage.
Say that a little louder. Say it again. The people in the back.
Well, the people in the back, you have to speak to that illness. Speak to that illness.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Overcoming Illness. I'm Paula Denoncourt, your host, founder, and CEO of Enrich Your Health. I'm getting a little feedback. What is causing that feedback? Okay. Can you guys
hear it anymore.
How's that?
Yeah, it sounds better than when you first started.
Okay, yeah, I was getting some feedback. Okay. So welcome to Overcoming Illness. I'm your host, Paula Denoncourt, founder and CEO of Enrich Your Health. I've been doing my business since 2010. It is still like, what is this? Hello?
I'm not hearing it anymore, Paula.
No? Okay.
Not on my end. Hopefully not for the audience either.
Okay, good. All right. I am sorry. Sorry about that. So I've been doing my business since about 2010. I help people with one-on-one coaching, group coaching, speaking engagements, and now my own TV show. So I am looking for people to be guests on the show that have overcome an illness or going through an illness or something like that. So if you're interested in something like that, then you would reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook Messenger, and I'd be glad to help you with that. Or you can text me. My number is 508-330-9665, and we could set something up.
Awesome.
Are you getting feedback now?
I am.
You are?
Yes.
Where is that coming from? I just
Are you
don't.
hearing it when I speak?
No, so it's me, but why? I don't have anything on. Let me see. I don't think I do. Let me check. What in the world is doing that? No, I'm not on. Like, I just looked on my other device. I'm not on there.
Yeah, it's not cutting out with every word, but after you say a few words, it cuts out a little slightly. So I'm not sure how that is for the audience. I can still understand what you're saying, but it's not 100% clear.
It's very echoey. I'm just looking to see. Guess. I'm going to try to go out and back in. Let me see if that works. I'm not going to end it. Give me one moment.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Okay, Paula's back.
All right, how's that? It's still.
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's still kind of doing it.
Well, we're going to have to go with it because I don't know what's causing it. I have no idea.
Okay. And hopefully if people are on, if they want to comment about how we're sounding.
Okay.
I can kind of
Well, anyway, looking for guests to be on the show, looking for people to partner with. So if you're a practitioner, doctor, lawyer, nurse, anything like that. Not lawyer. Where am I getting lawyer? That's because you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
Doctors, practitioners that deal in the health industry. You've got patients or clients that they're dealing with health problems, food allergies, food sensitivities. I suffered from multiple food allergies. So I can help with that. I can do customized recipes, or I have some recipes on my website, enrichyourhealth.com, and that's with a UR. So I chose to do this show, Overcoming Illness, because people's stories need to get out. People have autoimmune issues, cancer, congestive heart failure, all different illnesses. And so their stories need to get out. We need to help them with their stories, help other people. So my friend tonight is our guest tonight. I hope I say her name right. I don't want to butcher it. Amicietta Duche Clark. Did I get that right?
That's pretty close.
Okay.
So that's pretty close. I didn't see other.
So we met a few years back through business, and when she told me the illness that she was dealing with, I was like, "What is that?" I've helped a lot of people with Lyme disease, autoimmune issues, but I had never heard of. I'm going to try to say it, myasthenia gravis. So let me tell you a little bit about Amicietta and her story, and then we'll get into her story. So Amicietta Duche Clark, Esquire, is a highly sought-after speaker and certified holistic health coach. She believes that everyone has the power to affect their health outcomes and shares this message with conviction based on her battle with myasthenia gravis. I think I can say it right. It's a rare autoimmune disease. She was diagnosed at the young age of 25. Amicietta underwent several conventional treatments while working 80 to 100-hour weeks as a corporate lawyer. Imagine she was working 80 to 100 hours. I did a little of that myself, working in a prison. Following her diagnosis was a diagnosis of steroid-induced osteoporosis. Amicietta reclaimed power over her health and has been symptom and medication-free since 2011. Through her company, Clean Body Living, Amicietta helps high achievers with autoimmune disease and chronic illness shift their mindset to realize they own the power in their healing journey through awareness, body movement, clean eating, self-care, stress management, managing the healthcare system, and reducing environmental toxins. She is certified by the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, which I also went to, and is an alumni of Cornell University and Cornell Law School. Amicietta Clark is that just says, I apologize. That just says she's a certified holistic health coach, owner and founder of Clean Body Living. Welcome, Amicietta.
Thank you so much, Paula, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to chatting with you and sharing my story of overcoming myasthenia gravis.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your story and sharing your story. So tell us a little bit where you grew up, a little bit of your background, about your family, and then we'll go into some of the questions.
Sure. So I'm originally from Liberia, West Africa. I grew up there until I was about 12, and then there was a civil war brewing, and my family and I had to escape the war in 24 hours, lost everything, but we're thankful that we escaped with our lives and did not have to witness any of the horrific acts that occurred. But we left Liberia, my mom, brother, and I went to Guinea, Conakry, Guinea, the neighboring country, for about a year while my dad was here. He's also a lawyer, so he was getting his master's in law here in the States. And then we moved a year later to New York, Queens, New York. So that's where I went to high school. Went to high school there, and that's still kind of my home within here in the United States, but now I'm in Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of the questions. I'm sure people have a lot of questions. So let's start with the big one. What the heck is myasthenia gravis?
Yeah, it's gravis. So that's the same question that I had, Paula, and I'll just give you a little bit of background. So I went to law school. I was in New York, and then my parents moved to New Jersey, North New Jersey. I was down in New Jersey between law school bar exams and I was driving back to Cornell. So through Pennsylvania into upstate New York, and all of a sudden I couldn't see. Like the lanes were crossing one another, things were blurry, and I had been studying for my administrative law exam. I was thinking, man, I've been studying, but I don't think I'm that tired. Long story short, doctors couldn't actually figure it out. They said, oh, everything's fine. We ran a CAT scan. Long story short, I had to pull onto the side of the road, call 911. Everything was fine. I started going to a few doctors, and it was right when I had that initial episode of blurred vision. It was right before Christmas. So I came down to Maryland because even though we lived in New York, New Jersey, most of my family, extended family, lived in Maryland. So I came down, and my cousin, who's a pediatrician, said, those symptoms sound like myasthenia gravis. And I had the exact reaction. Paula, I was like, Maya, what? So myasthenia gravis is a rare autoimmune disease. I know you've talked about autoimmunity on your show, but I'll just give a quick sentence description. It's where your immune system mistakenly attacks parts of the body. So in myasthenia gravis, the immune system is attacking the muscle nerve connection. So there are these receptors. There's a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, and the receptor is where the immune system is attacking it. So when your nerves say to your muscles, open your eyes or raise your hands, the immune system attacks that, so you have weakness. So that's why I had blurred vision. Eventually I had other weakness in my body. And myasthenia doesn't just affect the eyes, it can affect chewing and swallowing, it can affect arms and legs, and unfortunately myasthenia gravis is fatal, as it can attack the lung muscles as well.
Oh, wow. I didn't
So
know that.
thankfully for me, throughout the journey, I did not have any lung involvement, but definitely scary stuff.
Yeah, I would say so. You're driving and all of a sudden you can't see. Like, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unfortunately, that wasn't like the only time it happened.
I wonder if I turn that down. Let's see if I turn the volume down. I think that might have helped.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Still
that might be
echoey.
it.
Okay. Sorry. So tell us about being diagnosed with myasthenia. Like you say, you didn't know what it was. You tell us about how long before you even started to get treatment. Like, you might have just, like I said, was tired,
Right. Well, thank God for my cousin, because at least I had something to go in with. Right. So when I saw a neuro-ophthalmologist and they thought it was something with my eyes at first. So they said I had a disease called Horner's syndrome, and they were thinking about treatment for that. And then I ended up going to a neurologist. Now I was armed with this diagnosis. Definitely saw one doctor who was, as I say in my upcoming book, cold as ice, who told me that his patients die. But when I eventually went to another hospital with another team of neurologists, I mentioned the diagnosis. I mentioned myasthenia gravis. And I said, oh, my cousin told me myasthenia gravis. And they asked, what type of doctor is your cousin? I said, a pediatrician. Oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But anyway, let's just test you for it anyway. So they ended up testing me. There's a blood test to test for acetylcholine receptors. I mentioned that earlier. So if you're acetylcholine receptor antibodies, so if the antibodies to that, that's one of the ways that they can diagnose this. And there are a few other tests as well. But once they did that test, then they thought I had myasthenia, and then they went on to do a couple of other tests and confirmed that I had myasthenia. But I think, like I said, I'm thankful for my cousin, because I know so many people go months, years without a diagnosis. Doctors are misdiagnosing them, thinking they have something else, and it just takes a long time. Because, for example, blurred vision is one of those vague symptoms. People with MS have blurred vision. People with eye conditions have blurred vision. So to narrow it down to myasthenia gravis without sort of ruling out so many other things, I'm just, thankful that we were able to get to it quickly. Now, trying to figure out how to treat it, that was another story. And I'm happy to talk about that as well. So
absolutely, tell us about that.
So one of the treatments is taking a medication called Mestinon, which is short acting. And so for some people it works, for some people it doesn't. And I think that's the case with many medications, right? So I started taking Mestinon. I was going to say, I believe it has less side effects than some of the other treatments. But it didn't work for me. I remember keeping a chart about when I took Mestinon and what my symptoms were, like whether there was any improvement, and couldn't really notice a pattern. So at this point, I was back in law school. I was actually diagnosed I first had those symptoms in December of 2002. So it was my last semester of law school. And then in the spring semester, that's when I started taking Mestinon. And then the doctors didn't really figure out what worked for me until later on that year. So maybe in like March or April. So because Mestinon wasn't working, they put me on an immunosuppressant drug. So because an autoimmune disease is where your immune system, myasthenia, the immune system is attacking the muscle nerve connection, one way to treat it conventionally is to weaken the immune system, suppress the immune system, so that your immune system doesn't attack the muscle nerve connection or whatever part of the body it's attacking if you have a different autoimmune disease. But of course, if you're suppressing your immune system, then I got sick from everything else, right? It was literally, Paula, the drugs that transplant patients take, like anti-rejection medications. That what I was taking. I remember I was 25, right? So those are the medications that I was taking. Medication called Neural, but they have so many other immunosuppressants these days. So I was taking that and got like every bronchitis every time like there was like a virus coming around me, I'd like get it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I took those immunosuppressants for about 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us about taking all these different drugs. They led to other things. What was working, what wasn't?
Sure. So I took the immunosuppressant for about 4 years. And then my doctor said, oh, you know what? This might have side effects. I'm like, well, thank you for telling me 4 years into it. So it's like, I don't want you to stay on these medications for too long. You're a young woman. He kept saying you're a young woman. So he switched me to prednisone, which is a steroid which reduces inflammation. And that has a whole host of really nasty side effects. But he did, even though I only had myasthenia gravis, I only experienced symptoms in my eyes. So I had ocular myasthenia. There's a test called an EMG where they, and I can't remember exactly what it stands for at this point right now, but it's an electromagnetic test where basically what they do is they inject you with needles and then send electrical impulses through the needles to stimulate your muscles. So it's basically like they're electrocuting you with a needle in you. It's like the worst test I've ever had. And when I first had that, and unfortunately I had that test a few times during my journey, but the results of those tests showed that even though I was only experiencing it in my eyes, that it was throughout my body. So it was in other muscles in my body. so my doctor recommended, or he had started hinting at taking surgery, removing my thymus gland, so having a thymectomy, because research has shown that people with myasthenia gravis either sometimes have an enlarged thymus gland, and removing it can help. And the thymus plays a role in immunity in children, but not so much in adults. So he kept mentioning that, but because I was only experiencing it in my eyes, I didn't want to do the surgery because I wasn't experiencing any other symptoms. But anyway, so I just want to give you that background because that sort of leads to some of the other treatment options that I had later. So I went on the steroid prednisone. And prednisone, the side effects are osteoporosis, diabetes, glaucoma, cataracts, just to name a few. And I took that for about 2 years. And then I was working as a corporate lawyer and working crazy hours. So even though I was taking these medications, even when I was taking the immunosuppressants, they would stop working. Like even though I was taking my medication as according to the instructions, the medication stopped working, and then I would have to take 2 different medications at the same time or increase the dose. The doctor would increase the dose just to keep me stable. So because things were, and I'm happy to get into that a little bit more, but because that's how things were going, I decided to finally do the surgery. So I did the surgery in 2009. So about 6 years into battling myasthenia gravis, I had the surgery and I had to get off prednisone because prednisone increases bleeding. And I had to get off prednisone. But then a couple months later, about 5 months later, I started to experience weakness in my hands. Like I couldn't type. And remember, I was a corporate lawyer. I was doing private equity and mergers and acquisition transactions where I'm, drafting, 80 to 100-page documents, the main document, and then like 15 other documents. Like I had to type, right? So like I couldn't move my fingers. And then I was also experiencing some weakness in my legs. And my leg, like it's hard to explain, and I can't really show you right now on the show, but it was like my leg wouldn't walk straight. Like I couldn't put my foot like down like this. It was like I had to like hobble along like that. And the funny thing is, the doctors, and I didn't figure this out either, didn't make a connection to myasthenia. Like they were checking me for blood clots. They didn't know what was wrong with my leg. It wasn't until later on in my journey that I put 2 and 2 together, and I said that was myasthenia. But anyway, because of the weakness in my hands, the doctor wanted to put me back on the steroids. So at that point, I had started doing more research. I had actually met a chiropractor when I was recovering from surgery, and she started talking about nutrition and BPA, bisphenol A, and plastics, and light bulbs are going off in my head. Like maybe these things are all connected. Maybe this could be contributing to my illness. So I was a little bit more educated. I was starting my journey of research and reclaiming my health. And I told my doctor, how about the long-term side effects, such as osteoporosis, glaucoma, diabetes, cataracts, as I mentioned? And he said, oh, but you're young. You're 31 and you're on a low dose of the medication. You don't have anything to worry about. So I went back on the medication. Then I could see, and the blurred vision was like really bad at that point. I would see like cars like in the river. Like it was crazy.
Ooh.
And yeah, like I definitely couldn't drive. But so the blurred vision cleared up. I could move my hands and I could walk properly. But then 4 months later, I went to see my gynecologist, and she said, are you still on prednisone? How is your health, your general health? And I said, oh yeah, I just got back on prednisone. She said, you know what? I think we need to check your bone density. So this is my gynecologist, not the neurologist I was going to. So she checked my bone density 4 months after I went back on prednisone. And what do you know? I had osteoporosis at the age of 32 in my spine and in my hip.
Oof.
Yeah, for me, that was like my turning point because I was so upset, not just because I was a young woman with osteoporosis, but because I raised this to my doctor. And my doctor didn't say, you know what, he can't predict the future, he's not God, but he could have said, that's a real possibility. Let's see what we can do to protect against it. I can't make any guarantees, but let's take some calcium, take some vitamin D, do some weight bearing exercises, take some magnesium, whatever other recommendations that would help my bone health. But
Right.
he just said, you're young and you're on a low dose. So that's really was the turning point in my healing journey.
Wow, that's amazing. And just full disclosure here before I forget, none of this advice is medical advice, not meant to treat, heal, or cure any illness. These are Amsietta's experiences and for educational purposes only. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, we definitely have to have the disclaimers,
Absolutely. Yep.
This is my story and what worked for me.
Talk to us a little bit. I've talked on the show about my stressful situations. I worked in a prison for 22 years. I was a dispatcher. I went through a lot of high stress situations. Talk to us about your stress, being an attorney, working 80 to 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
No wonder your eyes, it's almost like, it's so funny how the illness hit your eyes. I mean, that's basically what you were using.
Right.
Your eyes and your hands. So it was like your body was like, I'm done, lady.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, I didn't get the message for like some years, right? But that's a good question. So I remember, I'll share this story. I was put on a deal and I ended up working, it was like $2 billion companies merging, and we had to get the deal done by a certain point. So that first, when I was put on the deal, I was working like 75 hours, billable hours a week. And in big firms, like lawyers in general, bill their time in sometimes 6-minute increments. So if, Paula, you called me and we talked for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, I can't bill that time. If I went to the bathroom, can't bill the time. If I went to eat, can't bill the time, right? So 75 hours a week could be 85, 95 hours, depending on what else you were doing or anything administrative you're doing. So I was working I did 300 hours in 1 month, right? So about 75 hours a week. I remember during that time, I did about 40 hours in a weekend once, from Friday to Monday morning, Friday night to Monday morning. And then the next month, and I think this was just like my young self and not really being aware of how the illness was impacting me and how the stress was impacting me. Because I had worked 300 hours, I was 300 hours away from making a bonus for the end of the year. This was in November. So I was like, wow, if I work another 300 hours, I can make the bonus. So the deal continued into sort of mid-December. I found those other hours. So basically worked 2 300-hour months. Didn't have any blurred vision, no flare-ups. Martin Luther King weekend, so like 3 weeks later, all of a sudden I started getting blurred vision. I was like, yeah, but how come the vision, it didn't affect me while I was working those hours? And I ended up going to my doctor, and my doctor said the same thing you said, pretty much. And he said, you know what, if I worked 2 300-hour months, I probably would have blurred vision. I don't even have myasthenia gravis.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, so the stress, it was bad. It affected my body in different ways. And then, as I was saying before, it made the medications not work. And one thing I tell my clients, say in speeches a lot of times, is you can't out-medicate your lifestyle. So like medications are not going to make up for the crazy lifestyle
No.
that you have. You can't just take a pill and say like, I'm going to work 100 hours and think the pill's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like I definitely saw that. And it wasn't until I didn't come up with that phrase until, much later, not while I was working
Right.
those crazy hours. So it definitely like affected me. I also remember at one point having severe chest pain, not being able to breathe, and went to the ER only to find out that they said everything was okay. They were like, this is a panic attack. I didn't feel anxiety, but it was manifesting itself within my body, just the stress of working those hours. And it's not just those hours. I was also sometimes dealing with partners, bosses who were putting that pressure on you, yelling, cursing, all that stuff. And, there's just increases like your stress level. I even remember like my mom telling me to breathe. She was like, I'm Santa, just can you take 2 minutes and do some deep breathing? I'm like, Mom, I don't have time. Like I can't just stop and like breathe for 2 minutes. Can you imagine?
No, I get it. My job was like that too. It was just go, 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 go. I don't even know how I did it.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how I did it either.
Yep, like this chair I'm sitting in, I was literally in a chair like this, and I would roll from one side of the room to the other, to the teletype, over here, the phone over here, constantly back and forth, back and forth.
Okay.
Just and answering the radio was right here. It was insane.
Wow.
Insane. I don't know how I did it. So I totally get it.
You just have like those blinders on, right? Like you're just not, and you're so busy, you don't have time to even reflect on what you're doing and the impact that it's having.
Yeah. You don't know what a toll it's taking on your health until you're out of it.
Right.
I think. Yeah. I didn't know. Not real. I mean, as I got sick, for those of you who never watched me before, I got multiple food allergies. I worked in a prison for 22 years as a dispatcher. And, once I got sick, I had to get out of that job position. I didn't leave the jail, but I left that position. And that helped me tremendously to get out of that stressful job. Yeah. But once I got out of it, that's when I was like, how the heck did I do all that?
Right.
I didn't know.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. And that was like the osteoporosis diagnosis for me was like my turning point. And I ended up going to see a naturopathic doctor, changed my diet, started learning about environmental toxins, left that job, started engaging in self-care, started doing deep breathing and meditation. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to learn to let the stress not control you. There's got to be other ways. Like when you leave your job at the end of the day, what can you do? Like say on weekends, like for me, for example, I'm a health coach, but I'm still working a full-time job. So we have a pool here. So I went to the pool today and I sat by the pool with my neighbors and just relaxed a little bit. You've got to do something for yourself, whether it's go for a walk, or do gardening, go to a movie. You've got to do something to release that stress, or it's going to eat you alive.
So something you enjoy.
Something you enjoy. Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Golfing, whatever it is.
Right.
Do something. Don't get consumed with your job. And if you need a mental health day, you need a mental health day. Don't be like me and be like, who's going to do my job? That's what I used to say. Who's going to do it? Nobody else can do my job. And they really couldn't. But of course, now they can. Somebody replaced me. But at the time, no, it wasn't anybody. But, that's their problem. You've got to take some time for you.
Right. What I say now, and I remember now a good friend, but she was a more senior lawyer when I was a first-year associate. and I was stressed. It was 11:30 at night. I hadn't eaten dinner, and
Mm-hmm.
the senior attorney, the counsel I was working with, was like, "Can't you send out these documents before you eat?" I'm like, "I haven't eaten. It's 11:30 at night," and she was stressing me out. But anyway, my friend, now my friend, told me, "Calm down. This is not search and rescue in Iraq, and we're not doing brain surgery. If you take 5 minutes to eat, no lives will be lost." So definitely, I mean, of course, people do have jobs where a misstep for a couple seconds could result in lives lost, but a lot of people don't have those jobs. We feel like we can't take a couple of minutes for ourselves.
Oh yeah, I used to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches answering the switchboard because I couldn't take a break. I could take a break later. Like I worked 3 to 11. I could take a break at like 9 o'clock at night. But who wants to eat supper at 9?
Right. Exactly.
So it's not easy. I totally understand. So tell us a little bit about, you just talked a little bit about the breathing meditation. So how does mindset play a role in your healing?
Man, that mindset is key. To me, mindset is the foundation to healing. That's what I realized through my healing journey. So number one is thinking positively. Like even there are lots of times where I've said, I'm healed, and people have said, no, you're not. There's no cure for myasthenia gravis. But if you think, whether you think you can or you can't, as Henry Ford said, you're right. Right. So like if you think you can heal, that's going to manifest itself as positive energy in your body. I mean, when we think negatively, we're stressed, we start feeling, for me, pains in my tummy, in my belly, pains in my neck, like that manifests itself negatively in our body. And if we think positively, it manifests itself positively. So we say affirmations, right, to ourselves, like, I can heal, I'm healthy and whole, like I will beat this illness, right? That our brains are in constant communications with our bodies, right? So thinking that you can thrive and heal from an illness is just going to have so many benefits. And then secondly, if you think that way, then you're going to start thinking outside the box. So then you might say, you know what, in addition to this doctor that I have, this neurologist, let me get a naturopathic doctor. Let me get somebody who can help me with diet. Let me see if there are other healing modalities. Let me see if there's, what's this whole functional medicine thing about? Then you're going to start opening yourself up to other things, right? And then another piece of mindset is knowing that the things that we do every day, like this is something that I realized through my journey, is that the food I was eating, the stressful job or the non-stressful job, doing relaxation things to relax myself for stress management, all of those things are within my control, right? And that just empowers you. Like, so having that mindset, like if you know that you can heal and that, as I say, you own the power in your healing journey. Like you decide whether you're going to have that doctor. You decide whether you're going to go to another doctor. You decide what you're putting in your mouth, right? You're deciding what you put on your body. So like, to me, mindset is just key to healing. If you just think you're going to be down all the time, like you can never thrive, you can never beat the illness, then you're probably just going to be stuck there. It's going to be like even hard for conventional treatments to work. There's a mind-body connection. And
Absolutely. Yep. For me, it's prayer. I just believe in power of the tongue, just praying, like you said, I'm healthy, I'm whole. And, I just say in Jesus' name.
I'm a believer as well. And I know like that my spirituality was definitely a big part of healing. It was a big part. Like I was like talking to Jesus all the time about it. And yeah, life and death is in the power of the tongue, right? So,
Absolutely. Yep.
um, as a man thinketh, so is he. So,
Right.
like that's all scripture.
Yep. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the osteoporosis and, you know, man, I mean, you were like in your 20s, maybe early 30s, and now you've got, so what, did you start feeling a lot of pain in your bones? What happened?
No, I didn't feel anything, and honestly, I need to actually go and do a bone density test just to check. The reason I haven't so far is I ended up going to a specialist, and she told me that there were a number of treatments that would affect my fertility. And at that point, I didn't have kids. I wanted to have kids, so I wasn't going to take them. I mean, she wasn't even recommending them because she was like, "Hey, you're 32. You know, if you want a family, I wouldn't want to put a young woman on these medications." But also let me know that if I got off prednisone by the time I was 40, then the osteoporosis might reverse itself. And I ended up getting off prednisone within a year when I was 33. So I actually have not checked. I'm 45 now. I haven't gone back to check. I do things for my bones now. I
Yeah.
take my calcium, I take my vitamin D, but no, I didn't experience any pain. I mean, I have started having certain structural issues, like I have like some hip issues, back issues, but I don't think it's necessarily connected to osteoporosis, but you never know. This is a
Right.
good reminder to just do the bone density test, but I know I'm not taking any medication, like so, for
Right.
it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the dietary changes that you had to make. Like what, I mean, I know a lot about autoimmune and what can help with it, but tell us the dietary changes you had to make. Did you have to eat anti-inflammatory foods? What did you have to do?
Oh, sure, thanks. So, yeah, my naturopathic doctor mentioned an anti-inflammatory diet. I was like, "What's that? I never heard
Right.
of it." This is like when was it? 2010. So I hadn't
Mm.
heard of an anti-inflammatory diet. She told me to stop eating dairy.
Ah,
That was like a game changer for me. So
wow.
and for me, I never liked milk. Like despite like my mom's attempts to get me to drink milk as a kid. Like I mean,
Yeah.
I drank it, but I was never like somebody who was like chugging milk, right?
Mm.
So, but I did like to eat yogurt. I knew yogurt had probiotics, and sometimes I'd eat mozzarella, you know, pizza here and there, and those mozzarella sticks. So I completely cut out dairy. It's been 12 years, right? Or
Wow.
13 years. I haven't had any dairy. And then I started juicing. So I started eating a lot of anti-inflammatory foods. So I started eating the omega-3 fatty fish, like salmon, right?
Yeah.
And then I started eating a lot of increasing my vegetable intake, my green vegetable intake, eating more fruits and vegetables. I started juicing. I got a juicer and I was like,
Yeah.
I bought this book, Juicing for Life. And I started juicing every day. So I started juicing. And then I started learning about organic food. Like I already knew organic food, but like really getting into what's in conventional food. So the pesticides, the hormones, and
Yeah.
the antibiotics. So I started eating, and at that point, like I know a challenge for people with organic food is the cost.
Yeah.
At that point, I could definitely like afford organic, but I just didn't know sort of the benefits. So I had started, educating myself. So I started eating like all organic food, and yeah, mainly the juicing, organic foods, and no dairy definitely made a big difference in my life. I didn't eliminate gluten. I didn't know about gluten at the time. I don't eat gluten now, but I didn't eliminate it then, but I definitely saw a difference with eliminating dairy.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. You know, dairy contributes to inflammation
Yeah,
or,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I like Now I'm like anti-dairy. Like my kids don't eat dairy. I make exceptions.
Right.
Like if they go to like parties and stuff like that, but we don't buy dairy at our house.
I'll cheat on dairy every once in a while, some cheese or something. And I'll tell you,
Yeah.
for me, it causes congestion.
Yeah, mucus and inflammation, mucus in the body and inflammation.
Yeah. And it's so funny because as long as you go without it, you would think, okay, you can have a little bit, I'll be fine. That comes right back.
Paula, I'll share this. So it had been about 4 years with no blurred vision.
Mm-hmm.
2015, my cousin got married in St. Martin, and we were out late and ordered pizza. I ate the pizza. What do you know? I got blurred vision. Like for
From one pizza. Wow.
yeah. I probably had a couple slices, but yeah, just from
No,
that.
but I mean, just
Yeah, just
pizza,
from that.
that's it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, and even now, so I didn't know at the time, but grains and legumes really affect some people with autoimmune diseases, and I didn't have any issue with that. The only thing I really eliminated from my diet was the dairy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I added some good stuff, crowding
Right.
out. I'm sure you know that concept from being a integrative
Right.
Institute for Integrative Nutrition
Yeah.
alumni. Right, so that was like the main thing. But then I learned later in my studies that grains and legumes affect people. So I went on a vegan diet
Mm-hmm.
I did the Daniel's fast, right, with my church. So, but I was eating a lot of beans, a lot of grains, and then my eyes started twitching, like it used to when I had myasthenia. Like for me, I know like there's a certain diet, like I need to, stick with that diet.
Right. Wow. Just a little bit can just send you over the edge.
Yeah, sometimes.
I say that all the time, like with autoimmune, I've seen people, especially with Lyme disease, like they'll have a glass of wine or they'll have a cookie or just that it's the sugar, just a little bit. It just makes them inflamed like that and they're in instant pain. I am so grateful. I have more of like an intolerance, if you will. So I can have a little bit of pizza or something. It just causes bloating for me. I don't digest it well, but I don't have like a joint pain or any of that, thankfully.
Right.
So here's something else that, I think about obviously, but not everybody does. So one of the things I had to do when I started to realize I had these multiple food allergies, I had to be conscious of what I was putting on my skin. So I stopped using all perfumes and lotions and all of that stuff because that's going right in the bloodstream. We like absorb it. It comes right in.
Yep.
So tell us about, and then not to mention other toxins that you're breathing in, like you're cleaning with bleach and your whatever, the shampoo, the conditioner, the soaps, laundry detergent, all of that affects our hormones, our immune system, all of that. So tell us about environmental toxins and how they were an important part of your healing journey.
Sure. So you hit the nail on the head. Like all of those things, they have toxins, right? They all have toxins. So I always say with my business, Clean Body Living, you need to be conscious about what you're putting on your body, like on your skin, like in your body and like around your body. So including like in your mind, right? Your mindset, but around your body, that's the air you're breathing. That's like when we moved into our new house 2 years ago, we changed the floor. So I was like doing all this research about what type of flooring, like we did bamboo flooring, what type of adhesive, right? How much it was off gassing, right? Because all of those things do affect our health. And then there are environmental toxins in food. As I mentioned, I mentioned the pesticides and whatnot, but there are other toxins like in fish that they're toxins like all over the place. There are toxins in plastic. So what I did, the chiropractor that I mentioned, she was talking about BPA.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of bisphenol. I was like, what is bisphenol A? And she mentioned it was an endocrine disruptor, disrupts your hormonal system, linked to certain types of cancers. And that's when my light bulb went off and said, oh, but I wonder if it could be linked to autoimmunity as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up I got rid of all my regular plastics and got BPA-free plastics, thinking I was doing something good, right? For like a couple of years until I learned that companies who make BPA-free plastics is BPA-free, but they put in BPS and BPF, which are cousins of BPA, right? It's also an endocrine disruptor. So you want to eliminate all plastics, right? You want to get glass, stainless steel, ceramic, right? And then the same thing, body products. Oh, and one tip I'll give the audience is for body products and cleaning products, or just everything that you're consuming, including food. When you look at the front label of things, that is advertising, right? Because it will tell you it's BPA free, it's cholesterol free, it's gluten free, it's paraben free, which is a chemical that's in a lot of conventional body products, right? That helps hold them together. But when you read the back, you're like, oh, it's paraben free, but it has phthalates, which is another endocrine disruptor, and that's what shows up as fragrance. Like you're saying, you eliminate things with fragrance. Even things that have fragrance free have phthalates, right? So you need to educate yourself, read the back labels, and make the best choices for yourself. Oh, and water is a big one, right? Like a lot of us are drinking water. We might have our regular filter that they sell at the supermarket, and we're like, oh, this is great. We're filtering out chlorine and chromium and whatnot. But you really need to find out what's in your water and then filter for those things, or just get like a super filter that filters like everything. Like I have one of those. I have a Berkey water filter, which filters even pharmaceuticals out. But those are all things that like they're environmental toxins in your water. There's like arsenic in your water. So just being like what I tell people is, like I said, being aware of what you're putting on, in, and around your body.
Yeah.
Right. And you do your research. And then I also say try to do one thing at a time, a couple things at a time. Like if you're like, oh my gosh, okay, so my water, my plastics, I have to eat organic food. Let me see, anti-inflammatory diet. I need to start meditating. I need to upgrade my mindset. You're not going to do anything. Like you're going to get so overwhelmed.
Oh yeah,
so you have to do one thing at a time. So
yeah, it can be a lot. So tell us. So you have your own business, Clean Body Living.
Yeah.
Tell us some. Do you have any testimonials of helping somebody else with an autoimmune illness? Was it the same as yours, or was it something different? Any testimonials?
Yeah, definitely. I've helped people with lupus to really find out like what dietary changes would work for them, because everyone is different, right? So I recommend that people do an elimination diet. I do an elimination diet with folks to determine what thing. I mean, for me, it was dairy. I honestly don't think anyone should eat dairy, but for the most part. But that might not be the thing that's triggering for every client, right? It might be gluten. So I've definitely helped people with lupus to find out, what was really triggering their health and triggering their symptoms. Also, people with myasthenia gravis, and sometimes it's not just the diet, right? Like sometimes it's really the self-care, doing, alternative healing. So yeah, I've definitely worked with people with autoimmunity.
Does it like a light bulb go off for them? Like they're like, wow, thank God I finally have some sort of help here,
Yeah, sometimes it goes off. Sometimes it just goes off while we're working together, and I can tell from like social media that they're sort of reverting to their same lifestyle. I think everyone has to get to usually I found that, people have to get to a breaking point, right? Like where they're like, listen, I've tried things, like I need help. Like I'm ready to try. Like to me, if you had told me to just drink straight kale juice with no apples, nothing else, and you know how
not gonna
bitter
happen.
kale is, yeah, like I would have had it at that point. Like I would have had, like I drank. Do you remember noni juice?
Yeah, I did. I drank that.
Yeah, you drank noni juice. Like noni probably
Terrible.
yeah. I was about to say, it probably wasn't that bad, but I didn't think it was good at the time. But I was like, this, is touting health benefits. I'm gonna try noni juice. So that during my journey, I tried noni juice. I didn't share this earlier. I tried acupuncture. I went to see a chiropractor. Like I tried like everything just to see what worked. And that's what I also
Me
recommend
too.
for people, like try different modalities. And that's where like mindset comes in. Right. So once you like open your mind where you can think outside the box, then you'll try, like I have a friend who tried Reiki. Like Reiki, the energy healing modality really helps. My aunt was telling me to try EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique. Like there are different things that work for different people. And you just have to shift that mindset, realize that you own the power in your healing journey and that the decisions you make every single day are making an impact. And then you'll start making those different decisions.
Right. Yeah, I think the two biggest things we talked about tonight were stress and diet. And if you can just start changing that even a little bit, a little at a time, it's so worth it. One of the things I see very common though, like with people with any kind of like gut issues, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Like I'm in a group, for gluten. It's gluten-free, gluten-free support. And one of the things I noticed in there, it's a lot of, and they're just trying to help each other, but all they keep doing is trading this for that instead of like taking care of the health. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm buying gluten-free cookies instead of the ones with gluten. I'm buying gluten-free cake instead of the ones with, you know what I mean? Like, instead of getting your health in check and getting your gut going the right way, it's all just, I found gluten-free pasta, or, I don't see a lot of health in there. It's all about the,
Sort of like a quick fix.
Quick fix.
Like a pill, because that's what like I see people doing as well. They're like, okay, I'll just take this one supplement, but then you keep it there the rest of your lifestyle. And so that's why I think like mindset is so important.
Yep.
Right.
So I think a lot of people aren't ready to, I guess this is where I'm going with it. Like I had to change, like even gluten-free stuff wasn't good for me. Like it still didn't digest well because some of it's processed,
Yeah.
So I guess where I'm going with it is people really they've got to start changing. Like don't just trade this for that. Start eating whole foods. Change your diet. Like don't just do, gluten-free bread and cookies and cakes and, all that. You've got to have more whole foods that have nutritional value, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. And I remember I spoke at my church a couple of weeks ago and I was telling them, there are no like bread trees, right? Like, I mean, there are no bread trees. Like that's not a whole food. Right? So like we really need to eat foods that are grown naturally in the ground, animals raised naturally, right? Like you recognize it as a food without packaging. Yeah, I posted this on Instagram the other day. The most important thing to remember about eating about food labels is to eat foods without labels.
Yeah.
And I saw that quote somewhere. Yeah. So
we talked about that when I took my raw food class. Yep. If it's I forget what we said, something about if it's in a box and it's not a whole raw food. Something to that effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have like no time left, but please, first I want to thank you for being on tonight. We do have a viewer who's given us hearts, so thank you for giving us hearts. I don't know who you are, But if anybody has a quick comment, feel free to put it in the comments. You can put it in the comments later. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on my website, enrichyourhealth.com. You can reach out by phone, just text me, I'll get back to you, or Instagram message, Facebook message. Those are 2 good ways to get me. Email is not the best, and the email on my website isn't the best either. So just text, Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger, and I'm looking for sponsorship for the show, partners to help with recipes for your clients or patients, and guests for the show. Ancietta, thank you so much for being on. Tell everybody how they can reach you and get in touch with you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Paula. So I'm at Clean Body Living on Instagram and Facebook. You can also visit me on my website, cleanbodyliving.com. But Instagram message or Facebook message is a good way to reach me. You can also text me 443-963-9170.
Okay. And one last thing, I know you mentioned it earlier. You didn't really mention it on the show. I know you're writing a book. So tell the people about the book. When's the book going to be ready?
Awesome. It should be ready later this year. I don't know exactly the month. I'm in the process of writing it. And it's going to be about, it's a sharing my story and showing you how you can really own the power in your healing journey through mindset, like we talked about, food, support. Getting the right support is key. Finding the right doctors, making sure you do your own research. Lots of great juicy tips. So definitely follow me so you can get more information about when my book will be released.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been a world of information, and I learned a lot, even, the second time being an interview with you. So thank you again. I hope somebody learned something. I hope this helped somebody. So we will see you again next Sunday, everybody. Thank you. Have a great week.
Take care.